The following feature has language or content of an adult nature.
When we go and see Doogie, is it tomorrow night we're going? It is, isn't it? Tomorrow night, yeah.
Yep.
When we see Doogie...
we're going to the beautiful Croydon.
We are. The Cronks.
The Cronks of South East London.
The Cronks. We are both on this sort of drive at the moment to lose... I'm trying to lose 10 kilos to get, beach fit before I go to Croatia.
Yeah. Is that where you're going on your holidays?
Yeah, Croatia. Really looking forward to it. I'm going to try.
Dalmatian coast.
Yeah. It's an amazing place. Have you been there?
No. I went to Tallinn.
Right.
I can't tell you much about it. It was a rugby tour.
You don't remember anything.
That's in Estonia, by the way.
Yeah. So I was going to say that's not Croatia.
No.
Anyway, so when we see Doogie tomorrow, because we're going to go and hear him speak, we must ask him if he'll come on the show.
Yes.
But I'm looking at his website now. Let me just go back to his website. He's a frightening man to me.
Nobody knows who Doogie is yet, though.
Doogie Wallace. Oh,
Correct.
Doogie Wallace.
Yes.
Well, Doogie Wallace is a street photojournalist. And he's perhaps most famous for his work outside Harrods store, isn't he? Just grabbing shots. I mean, he's in many respects he's like Bruce Gilden, isn't he?
Yeah,
grabbing shots of the rich and famous, not even the famous, but the rich in their Ferraris and Lamborghinis.
Yeah. I mean,
bang, but with his flash,
he's
in
done
the face.
He's done a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
He did Shoreditch Nights and Hen Stags and Weekends, I think it's called, something like that.
Oh, the Blackpool one.
Yeah, Blackpool.
Yeah.
And then Harrodsburg was the film that was on. I think it was on the BBC, or it may have been on Channel 4. And it may have been part of the What Artists Do All Day series. I can't remember. Right. But there's been a couple of documentaries about him on TV.
Have you met him?
No, I haven't.
Is he as frightening as
I think I'd
says?
Be quite frightened, yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't ask. Maybe we'll just sit at the back.
But I love his pictures. His approach is very, very...
I'm really looking
mustard. Not mustard. What's that thing that people like or hate? Brown stuff in a jar.
Mustard?
No. Australians call it something else.
Marmite.
Marmite. Yeah, that's it.
It's Vegemite.
Yeah, Doogie's very Marmite or Vegemite to our Australian friends.
We must get him on this show because he's really interesting. I tell you what, I'm going to let you talk to him. I'm not going to ask him. You can ask him tomorrow.
The Fujicast.
Here, meet my friend Kev. He wants to ask you a question.
Hello, mister.
Right. This week, thank you to our friends at Simpler Straps for letting us give away a military-grade rugged camera strap, each to our favourite email question of the week. Go to simpler.us, simpler.us, if you'd like to see what we're talking about. Part one of a two-parter today with John Swannell. Now, if you don't know who John is, during his career, Swannell's photographed all the most important, the leading members of the British royal family. When I say most important, actually, he didn't photograph Princess Margaret, and I think she was fairly important. In November 1994, Diana, Princess of Wales, she personally commissioned John to photograph her with the two boys. And actually, he was an assistant for David Bailey as well. So he's a really interesting character. And I went up to spend a couple of days with him. It was just me and John wandering around the hills in the Lake District.
Hasn't he got some kind of like massive old house that you just kind of bumble around in?
The one in London. No, he's moved out of that one now. I did go there, and in fact, the first thing I found when I went in was this picture of it was a signed pitch from Diana thanking him for these wonderful pictures that he'd made. I thought that is a really cool photograph to have on your mantelpiece, isn't it? Anyway, your questions about anything Fujifilm or photography-related, technical, geek-worthy, artistic, or even personal, click at fujicast.co.uk, and we have the self-indulgent minute where we thank you for all the wonderful reviews you've been making at Apple Podcasts. Now, actually, on that note, Kev just said to me, have you got the negative ones as well? And I said, no, I haven't included those. Why would I want to include those? But
that's because you're boring.
yeah, there was that one. There was that one. Well, it's subjective, isn't it? He's welcome to his thoughts. Read your blog. Right, should we start with the questions straight away? You go.
Okay, right. I'm going to just go for the first one on my sheet because I haven't really read through them enough.
Oh no! Do you know I do all the preparation for this, and you come in and say you've not even read them?
I know.
I sit there the night before.
I know. Well, I'm
favourite scotch in hand.
The thing is, I get
reading
here
through these,
and you hand me 25 pages, A4 pages of questions, and I'm
but just because
drastically going through them.
I'm this sort of default producer for this show doesn't mean you just.
I'm just the guy that rocks up and talks.
You're such a star.
Right. Okay. So this one is from Gareth.
Right.
No email address though. Okay. However,
well, there will be an email address. I've just taken to putting down the bare bits that you need because clearly you don't bother when you come in.
This isn't this strap anyway, so okay. I don't need his email address. Sorry, Gareth. Esteemed Fujicasters, I'm a couple of episodes behind. We'll catch up today. I hope you did, Gareth. So sorry if you've covered this. No praise or thanks for the podcast from me because Kevin won't read it out.
That's why I gave you that one.
Yeah. Given I find a phone screen too fiddly and file management too much of a hassle, time consuming on a phone, what's your best current thinking for the management and editing of RAW and JPEG files whilst you're out on the road? Ooh. Are you still using Lightroom Classic on a Microsoft Surface Pro, or are you increasingly tempted to the dark side to use Lightroom CC on an iPad? Personally, I'd rather just use RAW editor, so I'm thinking of sticking with a PC-based solution, but interested in your thoughts.
Kev will never go to the dark side.
It says, Neil, the show is great. You can read that bit out. Thank you, Gareth. Well, how about you answer it first, because I know that you dabbled with your Microsoft Surface.
Well, I did. I really wanted to love it, and I came and wasted a whole couple of afternoons with you looking at this machine. And yeah. I'm going to be brutally honest, and maybe it was something I did wrong. I'm sure it was. I just did not find this machine fast at all, and I was thinking, what is it I'm not grabbing? And then the thing would go and reboot itself and keep updating in the background and I just
did you show it the fact that you had 3 massive Apple computers in the room? Did you let it see that?
Yeah, was it misbehaving on purpose?
Yeah,
I didn't find it was particularly fast, and I couldn't wait to go back to my 15-inch MacBook Pro, which I absolutely love when I'm on the road.
Which is, I mean, you were trying to do video editing on it, I think, as well, weren't you?
Yeah.
Which I have done. In fact, when I was in Spain last year, the video I put out in Spain was all done on my Surface Book.
Yeah.
There's a couple of answers to this, Gareth. My phone I currently have is a Huawei P20 Pro.
You love that thing.
I love it, yeah. And my brother-in-law, funny enough, he said, how do you pronounce it? And I was like, I don't really know. I just say
Huawei.
And he said, all you have to remember is they called it Who Are We for a reason. Who are we? Get it?
Yeah, I do get it.
Who are we?
Yeah, my 8-year-old's done that joke. Yeah.
Who are we?
Yes, he's done it.
Anyway, so I have a Huawei, which I prefer saying, P20 Pro, and I have to say that the pictures I think in that camera are fantastic.
God, you in that forum? We were members of a private forum, myself and Kev, with a few other photographers, and it was for about a month just non-stop pictures. And Kev would say, "Guess what phone this? Guess what camera this was taken with."
Yeah,
constantly.
Yeah, it became a little obvious in the end. But weren't the pictures good?
Yeah, they were okay. Yeah. No, they were. I mean, it is a stunning camera.
For a phone, I think it's absolutely amazing. Yeah. Absolutely worryingly good.
Well, if you had to put that against the very first digital DSLR you owned, you'd probably say the pictures squirting out of this thing, that's a horrible phrase, sorry, are a lot better than what they were.
Oh, honestly, they're a lot better than a lot of cameras. I'm telling you now, it is phenomenal. I'm fairly sure that every picture I take ends up on somebody's desk in China, though, kind of, what's Mr. Mullins been up to today? But I have nothing to hide, so I have no problems with that. Anyway, so I have that, and I use the Lightroom app on my phone. Right. So I kind of use the Lightroom Creative Cloud as a solution of me cluttering up my phone with loads of rubbish pictures. So what I do is every picture that I take on my phone that I want to keep, I immediately drop it into Lightroom on my phone, and that takes it up to the cloud. And then I delete it off my phone. So I don't have any pictures on my phone as such. They're all in my Lightroom cloud. So I only keep the ones that I want to keep then, rather than 20,000 pictures of the kids eating dinner or whatever that we all take.
So you're talking about the Lightroom CC app there, aren't you? That one, which is brilliant. And I assume you've got the full use of it, including selective edit and stuff.
Yeah, it's very good. I mean, that's only for my kind of phone snaps. In terms of answering the question about properly editing on the road, I use a Surface Book, not a Surface Pro. There's a difference. So the Surface Book is a laptop, Microsoft laptop, where the screen comes off. It's got a dedicated graphics unit in it, so the screen can come off, and you can use it as a tablet if you wish. Which is
really cool.
It is very cool.
Yeah,
what I normally do is I reattach the screen to the top of the keyboard, so the keyboard's underneath. And then it has a stylus as well.
Does it heat up much?
I mean, it does heat up, but nothing. Only when you're doing something pretty tasty.
Not worryingly so.
No, not at all. And it's had various updates since this. I don't actually have the latest one. There's a Surface Book 2. I have the kind of Surface Book 1.5. And I absolutely love it. I think it's an amazing laptop. I can edit full weddings on there. I can do YouTube videos and all that kind of stuff. But primarily, what I'll do is if I know I'm going away and I have a wedding to edit, I'll use Lightroom on my studio machine. And I say studio as in the one in my studio, not the studio book, not the laptop book. I will make smart collections, smart previews. Sync them via Dropbox, and so my Surface Book is just working on the smart previews, and you can actually just open those up on the phone and on your iPad. I don't have an iPad. I don't have any Apple devices.
No, you don't have anything now, do you?
No,
iPhone's gone.
iPhone's gone. I got a Huawei. Did I?
Who are we?
Yes.
Who are we?
Isn't that cool? Who are we? So I use. I'm a fully fledged up member of the Creative Cloud. I pay them. I don't know. I pay them about £48 a month, I think, for the all the tools I need, which includes Premiere Pro.
Some people really don't like the idea still of paying an Adobe subscription, and I've always said to people that are very anti that idea, you need to look at it like it's the fuel for your car. You couldn't go to a job, whether it's a sporting event, shooting a wedding, or shooting a portrait, whatever you're doing, you couldn't go to that job unless you had transport there, whether it's a car or whether it's a train or whatever transport you use, apart from a bike. It's the fuel for your business.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right, and I have no problems paying for it also. But I do also have things like alien skin exposure and Capture One, etc. is now in the playing field, and alien skin exposure is very good. Also, it's does the job perfectly well. I can edit full weddings in that. In fact, I've been doing more of that recently. But in terms of a mobile solution, I think Lightroom and the Creative Cloud connection works very well.
I need to upgrade my Lightroom actually, because there's the new texture control in there or something.
I tried that.
Is it good?
I don't really know.
What is it? Is it like some sort of clarity thing?
I think it should just be called blurriness.
Oh.
More blurriness or less blurriness?
But that doesn't sound like texture. Texture sounds like it's going to put some meat, some grip in the image.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't really play around with the sliders much anyway. So, but yes, it is there. And you know what you said about the subscription model, and I remember I used to work at Microsoft a long time ago. And they, when we used to buy, or when people used to buy things like Visual Studio and Microsoft Office, it used to come in a massive box with about 20. I remember when it was still 3.5-inch floppy disks. And I remember getting a copy of what was then Microsoft Office 93, Office 10 maybe it was, I can't remember. But it had 35 3.5-inch floppy disks. You plug them all in, one after the other, they'd all grind, and then you'd get to like disk 32 and there'd be an error on it, and that would be the end of it. You'd have to send it all back and get it replaced. And it was carnage. And at that time, Microsoft started muting the idea of subscription-based software. And that's how it all went. They all went that way. And I actually think when I first bought what was then called Adobe Creative Collection, I think it was called, and it was still CDs or DVDs. I paid $2,500 for it. And
it was terrifically expensive, wasn't it?
Very expensive, and then it was out of date. Then they updated it, and you had to buy it all again.
But
or
then
upgrade.
You didn't get all the tools I think you can get now. I mean, if you look at For example, I'm going this coming weekend on an After Effects course because I really want to improve that side of my work for the YouTube channel. And but I After Effects is included within it. It's an extremely powerful piece of video software within the suite that you can use with Premiere, and in Audition for the sound, which is great. Photoshop, obviously, Lightroom.
I mean, most people will.
Rush. Have you tried Rush?
That's the mobile video editing thing,
right.
isn't it?
That's really good.
Yeah, I should put that on my
And your it would work really well with that. So thank you very much for your question.
Yeah, thanks, Gareth.
Is this the Welsh start of the show then? Because we've got Gareth, now we've got Geran.
Geran.
That's a Welsh name, isn't it? Geran?
How do you spell it?
Gerran. Geran Main.
Yeah, maybe.
Geran's going to write to me now and say, "How dare you? I am Suffolk-based." I thought it was a Welsh name anyway. Hi, Kevin. Hi, Neil. I have my mum and dad's 50th wedding anniversary coming up. Congratulations to them. And it offers me, that's me saying that to them, and it offers me a fantastic opportunity to capture a very special occasion with lots of the family coming together. Mum and dad want to keep it fairly low-key. They booked a local golf club as a venue for lunch. How do you balance the desire as a photographer to capture as much as possible while still being present at the event yourself? Rush around like a maniac and you're not really present? Focus entirely on the event and miss an opportunity to record a special occasion forever? ? I'm a convert to Fuji, so was intending to use my X100F over an XT3 to minimise fuss. Oh, by the way, Neil, I love the idea of also recording audio for this. My intention is to take along my newly acquired Zoom F1 and get some memories of their wedding day 50 years ago. I know that you intend to cover this on YouTube, which I said I would on my film, but any advice ahead of that would be much appreciated. I'll tell you what, if I start with the audio and then you go with the advice of handling the visual part of it. Okay. Because the first one is physical in terms of kit. Have you, with your recorders, have you got the Zoom F1?
No, I have the HN Zoom HN. Is it
so
Zoom?
You got the
H4 thing.
Oh, right, not so the larger one that you can put the XLRs in, yeah.
Yeah, it's got two XLR things into it.
So not the one that you put the little mini jacks in for the lavalier microphones.
No, I think it's got a hole for that as well.
Probably, yeah.
I got various other things as well.
So Geran has got a Zoom F1, which is one of their latest professional recording units. It's part of the professional range. F is part of the professional range.
F standing for professional.
Yes, obviously. I don't know what that bit stands for. So the F1 is great, but the clip, the bit that goes onto the microphone, that's a bit weak, and the microphone can fall out. In fact, we found this, didn't we, when we were swapping microphones about when we went and did the Don McCullin thing?
Yeah.
Do you remember the microphone was hanging off?
Yeah.
It should have been on the clip. So this is obviously nothing that Zoom would suggest, but I super glued it in, because it swivels just fine in the swivel. Also, I dabbed a bit of glue on the wind pop shield bit, so that won't come off either. These are not things that people will be saying, "What? You super glue bits onto an expensive mic?" Yeah, well, you see, it's draconian measures, I know, but the mic is not really the great deal that Zoom's more expensive lavalier is. So I was prepared to.
But you know what? You can always tell when, like, if you look at a proper professional F for professionals pieces of equipment, they're all butchered a bit, and I think that's all great. I remember seeing that Revilius's camera, his Leica M3, and it had bits of frying pan.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Stapled to the top.
Yeah.
You got to do the things to make it work. Yeah.
So on the upside, it's got pretty good pickup in terms of high and low frequency. It would not win an award over a Sennheiser microphone, that's for sure. But I'm not often in a quiet studio environment, and you won't be here. If I am, by the way, I've got a couple of Sennys lavaliers that I stick on, but most of the time I just use the F1, the mic that comes with the F1. 90% of the time I would say it's the F1 paired with the mic that came with it. But that's what I would suggest if you don't want this thing to fall apart on you. Sorry, Zoom, but that's what I've found. Switch the input quality to WAV. Don't use MP3. Gain, I would record, and those that have this model will understand it, medium or medium plus. Okay?
So why WAV and not MP3?
Well, okay, in a very clumsy way, you need to think of WAV a bit like raw pictures. Okay, right. MP3 is your JPEG.
Right.
WAV is your RAW. It's a better quality of sound. You've got more, if you like, dynamic range.
Does that mean you need to, like if you record MP3...
Larger files, obviously.
Yeah. Does the MP3s come out, kind of edited a little bit?
Do you know what? You'd have to be pushing the quality, because you can choose various levels of MP3 quality.
Because I know that when you speak in real life, you sound like Joe Pasquale. So what you hear now on here...
Yeah, this is WAV. So, yeah, to be honest, some high quality MP3 bit rate is going to be fine, absolutely fine. And if you've got a small card, then you'll have to do it. But I would choose WAV if I could. So I've talked about gain, and then in post-production, take it through Audition. We were talking about this. There's a great filter in Audition called Voice Thickener from one of the drop-down options, and then normalize, and Bob is your uncle. Job done.
I'm guessing he probably won't have Audition, though.
Oh, if you haven't got Audition, if you're not using Adobe Audition, then there are similar kind of filters in...
Sony Vegas?
Yes. But I'm trying to think of the one that I used to use. It'll come to me in fact, it'll come to me while you're talking about the video.
I would even think something like Premiere Elements has got a basic level of audio correction and stuff in it.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the audio side. You were talking about, how do you balance capturing as much as possible but still being a guest?
Which is really tough, actually, because he mentioned a couple of things that made my ears prick up, and that was, this idea of rushing around and taking loads of pictures. And I think that's the downfall straight away, because, wherever you are, even if you're being paid, rushing around and taking loads of pictures is not going to get you what you want, to be honest with you. So
like a headless chicken.
Yeah, exactly, and you definitely won't enjoy it. I don't know. I mean, I've not been in that situation, to be honest with you. Like I've been at weddings as guests and things like that. But you always get that, don't you? Yeah, can you come to our wedding as a guest? Yeah, sure. have you booked a photographer?
No. I was hoping that
I'm not coming then.
Oh.
So yeah, I mean, honestly, if I'm being brutally honest, I would say don't put any pressure on yourself. You will get pictures anyway, even if you're just taking snaps of the people you're speaking to in front of you. Don't go out of your way to make it something it isn't. That's the key thing, I guess. Enjoy it. That has to come first for any kind of family thing. If it's really, 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 really critical that you have a beautiful documentary of the event, pay someone to do it.
Say the current Mrs. Mullins ran off with Thierry Henry. I don't know why his name came to pass there, but he's a good-looking dude. Sam, my wife,
for Arsenal as well.
Well, yeah, and Sam has always said that if there are various people on our list. Do you have a list, by the way?
A list of what?
Well, a list of people that if they ever said, "How about it?" you say, "All right." The wife says it's fine. So Winona Ryder's on mine.
No, I don't have a list.
Jodie Foster's there as well. I like Jodie. I've got a soft spot for Jodie.
I know Gemma would drop me in a heartbeat and I can never remember his name, for the man that was the Fly.
The Fly? Jeff Goldblum.
I call him Jeff Goldblob. Jeff Goldblum. She absolutely
does she love him?
Yeah.
Okay. So all right, let me rephrase this question.
She'd leave the kids for him as well.
No way.
Yeah.
Jeff Goldblum comes round. He happens to be in your Sleepy Village, and he says, "Well, look, I've had my eye on you for a while, Gemma. How about it?" And they disappear off into the sunset. Job done. So it comes to the next Mrs. Mullins.
Yeah.
This is a long way to ask you this question. Who are you going to ask to photograph your wedding?
Oh my God! What a
no, but there was a way of sort of approaching Garen's question.
I thought you were going to ask me who the next Mrs. Mullins would be.
No, I wouldn't be so rude. But who would it be? No, don't answer that question. But would you ask a mate that you trust because you know that they do the kind of photography you want? Or would they come to your wedding as a guest?
It's really tough because I'm asked a lot of times by other photographers who photographed my wedding, and my first wedding we did have an official photographer.
We call it practice wedding.
But it was back in the days of film, and if I remember rightly, she did a very good job. Obviously, the pictures are somewhere in a skip, I would imagine. Our second wedding, my second wedding to my current wife, and my only wife, Jeff Goldblum can Goldblum
do
off.
one, right?
I don't intend on changing any further, although she might have different plans. We didn't have a photographer because it was before I was a photographer, and we just did a very quick registry office wedding. We had my mum and dad, her mum and dad, various immediate family members. That was it. And literally the only, and it's a bit of a disappointment really, the only picture we have is one my mum took on her then Nokia, whatever it was, and neither of our heads are in it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oof.
So, but to answer your question in a very long-winded way, who would I have? I don't know. That is really tough because I would love, I would have you in a heartbeat.
You have to say that bit. So once we got over that bump.
Yeah, no, but I would. But, I would also want you to...
I'd be too drunk.
Be a guest.
Far too drunk.
Yeah. Alistair, definitely, but I would have him as a guest. It has to be somebody who you probably wouldn't invite as a guest.
Yeah. So you're going to upset somebody, aren't they? Because say, well, thanks, Kev. I thought I might be on your A-list.
I'd give Jeff Ascoff a call. Say, hey, Jeff, can you come out of retirement?
Yeah.
Come on, bring your luggage. He always said...
You can bring Sarah too, because she's great.
He always said at his workshops, he would love to photograph a wedding on a mobile phone. So I can see it. Ring,
there
ring,
we go.
Ring, 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 ring.
Yeah.
Hello. Oh, hi, Jeff. This is Kev.
Is that how Jeff talks now?
I don't know.
Hello.
Hi. Is that Kev Mullins? Yeah. Oh, what do you want? And I'll say, Jeff, I've got a whoa. You can just remember it as.
Hold on.
Oh, here he is.
Hold on. Hello.
It's
Jeff. He says he's available.
Cool. But no, I would, and I'd give him a Huawei.
See what you can do with it.
P30 Pro.
Yeah, but he's an Apple user, I think.
Oh yeah, but he's just a bloody good photographer, so it doesn't matter.
That's true. Yeah.
So yeah, I reckon. I don't think he would come out of retirement though.
All right. Another question. Then we'll go for this one comes from Jay Goldblum. Is it in Hollywood? No, it's your turn.
All right. This one is from Greg. We've done all. What was the name of yours? Was Garen. My
They're
first
all
one
G's,
was Gareth.
Today
this
we've
one's
worked
Greg.
through the G's.
Yeah, Greg Smith. This is. And actually, this is a very interesting question, and I'm going to give him my simpler strap.
Well done.
So well done, Greg. Doesn't say where he's from.
I will have all these details.
Blah blah blah.
How many times do I need to tell you? What I do is I just put the necessary bits on your paper, so it's not.
Yeah, I have his email address.
Yeah,
that's cool. Okay, so Greg, hi Neil and Kevin. No, I'm not complaining about the show. My question is about how you deal with complaints, if you ever get any. That is, I love the show and I've listened to every one of them. I always find them stimulating, and the photographers you have introduced me to are uniformly interesting. Cool, interesting. So my question is, how do you deal with complaints from clients? I shoot around 60 to 80 weddings a year. He qualifies that by
You're in medal territory.
He does qualify that by putting in the brackets at the lower end of the market, although I don't. That's
it's still a wedding.
Really. Yeah, absolutely. And get a few complaints each year, usually along the lines of, why isn't there a photo of Uncle Bob or whoever? I always find it quite hard to deal objectively with complaints, as I put a huge amount of effort into the day, not to mention all the editing and time afterwards. I suppose I take it too personally, but I'm so passionate about my photography, I find it hard not to take it too hard when somebody has a moan. Would love to hear your response. So have you ever had that?
I'm going to be absolutely honest, because there's too many people that hide behind this sort of smokescreen of everything's awesome and perfect, and not everything is awesome and perfect. I've shot 800 weddings. Of course I've had complaints. But they don't. I've never had one so bad that said you screwed up my wedding. Thank God.
Have you ever had that specifically?
I have had specifically that question.
Why are there no pictures of?
Yeah, and often I will say, look, it's human nature that some people kind of, in inverted commas, hide themselves from the photographer. They may not do it on purpose. People sometimes become sort of, what's the visual version of radio silent? They just go off the grid. And this happens so often at weddings. People go off the grid. Now, it could be because they weren't, they were standing behind people. It could be because they'd gone to the bar. It could be because they were checking in. It could be because they were sat in the corner looking miserable.
I shot a wedding a couple of weeks ago, and it was the Champions League final. And I turned around, and there was like half the room had just disappeared. And I was like, where is everybody?
Yeah.
And it was at a place called North Cadbury Court.
Yeah, we were texting each other. Yeah,
Beautiful,
it is.
Beautiful wedding venue.
Wonderful place.
Very, very ancient house.
Yeah.
And I found the television room, and
they were all in there.
They were in there, but no word of lie. It was like a 60-inch plasma TV, and around and in it was in a gold picture frame. So it was a gold picture frame with this TV in it, and it just perfectly suited the environment. And they were all watching the football.
Did you? So there we go. So, but you probably won't get complaints from that as such.
Oh no! It was a great wedding actually.
Yeah,
but that's it. You know, do you know what? When my sister got married, she's been married, I don't know, like 25 years or so. Wales were playing football that day, and my dad. He went up to his bedroom in the Hilton Hotel in Newport, and he basically spent the entire afternoon watching the football, and then came back down.
No. So go on then, back to complaints. How do you deal with someone who's said, where's Uncle Bob? Where are they in these pictures?
So you mentioned that idea of off the grid, which I think is, you know, the best explanation for it. And I've had it occasionally also. I haven't shot anywhere near as many weddings as you, but I have had it. I don't know, I'm being conscious of what I say here, but he did qualify the fact that he put in brackets at the lower end of the market. And I do feel that, you know, the ones where you've struck a deal, or, you know, you're not getting perhaps the same money that you would normally get for a normal wedding and stuff. And I don't know, there just tends to be more of a chance, I think, of negative feedback, perhaps, at that real low end. Yeah. And I am caveating that with that is a completely subjective statement, but that's my kind of thoughts on it. And yeah, I've had it a couple of times, and yeah, I've said a similar thing. I've just said, look, you know, it's the Starless documentary. It's not possible to take a picture of everybody, especially if you've got 120 guests. You know, I had a consultation a couple of weeks ago, and the woman, the bride, was asking whether, you know, we really love your style, everything's great. What we want is for you to stand at the church doorway and take a portrait of everybody when they come in, so you know we know we have them. And I was like, well, you know, that's just not going to happen, because it's not very documentary. I mean, don't get me wrong. People who do this, and they do it very well, but all that's going to happen is you're just going to have a backlog of people outside the church for a start.
Like some sort of mini receiving line.
I'm going to miss everything, you know, and then it was just a case of kind of explaining the way that the way that I work. But people, I think it's a valid thought process by clients, especially potential clients. You know, will we get a picture of so and so? And you know, you just have to be honest with it, and you know, as you said, Neil, and you know, this is what I would suggest to Greg, is that you just say, look, it's not possible to, you know, unless they're in the formal group shots, you can't guarantee they're going to be in a picture. You just can't. It's just there's only one of you. You know,
most of your clients should be aware of the way you photograph.
Yeah,
Greg, and I think you need to make them aware of it before this happens.
Absolutely.
And I think that was shortcut.
Yeah, and of course there's all kinds of things that may be at play here. I mean, perhaps Greg got an email that said, you know, here are a list of the people that we definitely want photographed, and maybe he replied saying, okay, great, I'll do my best. In which case you're kind of setting yourself up for a bit of a fall there.
But often it's not actually the bride and groom.
No,
it's actually pressure from outside. And you know, I mean, this could come with this comes with a bit of health advice. Warning. But I will say that I had to deal with one. I mean, it sounds like I get loads, and I don't. This is a good few years ago, where in the end I said, look, maybe it's better that you concentrate on what you have rather than what you don't have. Yeah. And I tried to approach it from that angle, and it worked. Yeah, that's a very, very good. That's very philosophical. It could backfire on you, but there we go. Very good. Thank you very much for questions. We'll come back to questions in the second part of the show. Should we do the self-indulgent minute now and then the interview, or do the self-indulgent minute after the interview? Let's do the interview. The interview, right? Okay. This interview has been hanging around in my office for many years. I think I must have recorded it to maybe even nearly 3 years ago. And there was always supposed to be a second part to it for the film, which there isn't yet. But actually, the amount of material recorded is plenty for a full-length documentary about this man, and certainly 2 smaller segments on this show, which we're going to use across the next 2 weeks. The photographer's name is John Swannell. He is you can't really describe him as just a royal photographer, can you really? Because
was he part of the Brit Pack that they called it?
Was he part of that?
I'm not sure, but he was certainly around that time.
He was an assistant to David Bailey, and he, anybody that learns under David Bailey is certainly going to be learning their trade well.
Yeah.
His name is John Swannell. What he doesn't know about the royal family in terms of photography isn't worth knowing. So this is part 1 of a 2-parter with John Swannell. And I'm not sure that twist is the right phrase, but there's certainly a surprising story told within this first part. Because if it weren't for John Swannell, maybe we wouldn't have had a Bailey career that lasted quite so long. You'll know what I mean by that in a moment. First of all, I started out by talking to John about how photography has developed, if you'll forgive the pun, how it's changed, how the landscape around him has moved on.
It's easier to take pictures now than it was, much, much easier. With digital, you can make a lot of mistakes and you can give it to Photoshop or a good retouch and they can finish it off and make it look great, really. I've seen it, I've seen sort of pictures that are just mediocre. A good retouch, it turns them into something special. I mean, you didn't have that in our days. It was just, it was kind of too expensive. And also, we used to shoot on transparency in the early days, and you had a stop either side to go. If you didn't get it right, the exposure right, stop either side, and it was no good.
I sent you, Phil. I'm being careful about using this word, but that it's somehow dumbed down.
Probably, yeah, it's dumbed it down. I mean, everybody looks the same. They've all been retouched to death, and they all look a bit sort of mask-like. Women in their 60s and getting on for 70 look like they're 25, 26. It's just a bit eerie, I think. It's just slightly eerie.
So how did you find yourself assisting Bailey?
I got a job. I knew Vogue had 6 assistants, and I got the British Journal of Photography every week. And, after a few months, I saw one of the assistants had left, and they were advertising for another one. So I applied for it with a lot of other kids, but they wouldn't take me when I was only 18, I think, 18 or 19, and they didn't take anybody under 21 because of the calibre of photographers. Bailey, Norman Parkins and Cecil Beaton was even working in those days, although he was on his last legs. So it's, you had to be, really professional and have been assisting for quite a while. So I didn't get the job, and then, funny enough, a couple of months later, there was a job in the storeroom at Vogue on the same floor, on the 6th floor. So I thought, if I get up there, just as a storeman's assistant, I think, which means you carry the furniture into the studio, because House and Gardens was there at the time, and Condé Nast owns House and Garden too, so they used to do room sets. And I got that job. I sounded very enthusiastic about being a storekeeper's assistant, and fooled them. I must have fooled them anyway. I got the job, and then the break came when one of the assistants was ill. One of the 6 assistants was ill, didn't turn up one morning, and they all started to panic. And I said, I can assist it. I can do that. I can work with the photographer. And the guy, Derek, who gave out the jobs, the guy called Derek, he said, "What are you talking about? You're in the storeroom." I said, "No, but I can assist. I can do it." And he said, "Don't be daft, I said, "What camera does he use?" And they said, "A Hasselblad." I said, "Give me a Hasselblad." So he gave me a Hasselblad, and I turned it over, took it back off, put the film in, took the film out, took off the lenses, put them back on, tried all the different lenses, and worked all the bits and pieces. And he was in shock. He said, "My God, I didn't realise you. Where did you learn that?" I said, "I used to be an assistant." I didn't tell him the story of trying to get in. I said, "I can do it. I'll sort it out. You're in trouble. What are you going to do?" So he said, "Okay, we haven't got any choice." So I did it. And the guy was working on a 3-day shoot, and he kept me for the 3 days. The next time he came in, he used to work a couple of days a week. He said to Derek, "Could I get John again?" Because we worked together quite well. And then it happened again with another photographer. Somebody was ill again, and I got to work with him. And when they came back, said, to me, said, "Do you want to work again with me this week?" And I said, "Sure. I better check with Derek. He's the boss, So that's how I got in. And then one of the assistants left. And I said to Derek, I've helped you out a lot. Now give me a break. And he said, you're too young. You're still only 19. And, we don't take anybody under 21. I said, yeah, but I can do the job. So we had a chat with the people above, and they gave me the job. I was the young assistant there. And the next thing was obviously trying to work with Bailey, because he was in and out all the time. And he had his own assistant, but Vogue would supply him with a second assistant. And every week or every month I'd say to Derek, come on, let me, you'd look on the board and all the photographers, your name would be under who you were working with that day, so you wouldn't know until that day, and you looked on the board and see who you were working with. And I was never with Bailey, and I couldn't persuade him, and I had a hard time trying to persuade him. And then I think I did a couple of favours. I managed to get him some tickets, I think, for something or other, Frank Sinatra, that he loved, and he let me work with him, this particular day. And I was so nervous, ridiculous. And I had this new gadget that fits on the tripod. Instead of unscrewing the camera and taking it off the tripod and screwing the other camera on with a new film in it, this was just a little thing that you screwed onto the tripod, you flick it, and the camera slides on and slides off. And on the day I was so nervous, I slid the camera on, and Bailey came in and just sort of grunted at me, and took the roll of film, stepped back, and I was so nervous I went in, pressed the button too hard, the camera shot off onto the floor and smashed into pieces. And I looked at the camera on the floor, and Bailey was there, and the tripod was there, and he looked at me and looked at his camera. It was a Rolleiflex planar lens, 3.5 lens. I remember the camera very well. In pieces on the floor, and he said, "What was all that about?" And I said, "Well, this, the camera, the thing that it just slides on and off, and I flicked it down too fast. I'm really sorry, And he said, "Oh, tell Vogue they owe me a camera." So I had to take up all the pieces, go downstairs, and explain what I did. And they said, "Oh, we're going to take it out your wages every week." But they never did, actually. They were quite good. But I thought that was it. I'd blown it. My one chance to work with my hero, I'd blown. And then 2 weeks later, he was in again. I looked up, and my name was underneath it. I thought, "Derek," I said, "you've put my name under with Bailey." I said, "After last time, have you made a mistake?" And he said, "No." I asked him who he wanted. He said, "Oh, I'll have that dickhead, John, who smashed my camera up last week," because he was enthusiastic, even though he smashed the camera.
And that was the start of a reasonably long relationship, wasn't it?
5 years, yeah, it was 5 years. I worked with him every time he came up, and then, he used to call me on Saturdays to do an odd job when he couldn't. His own assistant didn't want to do it or couldn't work on a weekend. And eventually, I basically got the job with him.
It was a reasonably glamorous gig too, wasn't it?
Yeah, when I eventually got the job, one of the first trips we did was to Hawaii. It was fantastic, unbelievable, and staying in a place called Kona Village, and it was heaven. It was just, I'd never been in such a beautiful place before. I think it's one of my first trips on a plane as well. And Bailey wanted to. He asked the manager if there was a lagoon nearby, and he said, "Yeah, there's 1 or 2 miles up the coast." He said, "How can we get there?" He said, "We've got a boat, a fisherman's boat that we've converted for passengers, for our guests." So he said, "I'll take you in the morning myself." He's a 27-year-old Swedish guy, blonde-haired, really nice-looking fella. So he said, "I want to be up before the light comes up," and the light came up at 5, so we were all ready to go, and jumped on the boat, and off we went, to this location. And half an hour in, we were about sort of 600 yards, maybe half a mile from the coast, and the sun came up over here, and everybody turned golden brown, and I was sitting at the back of the boat just looking around thinking, this is heaven, actually. This is lovely. I looked across at the sandy beach, and the hotel was beautiful, little straw huts on the beach, and the only way into this place, it was so exclusive, was a private plane that had its own airstrip. We were shooting for American Vogue, so they could afford it. And back of that was Jurassic Park, this mountain range that looked just like Jurassic Park. I looked at the sky, there was blue, the sea was turquoise, and I thought I'd arrived. I really thought I'd arrived. This is, coming from Finsbury Park back in London. I thought, I've come and met my maker. It was fantastic. And then suddenly it all went very dark, really dark, and we all looked across to the sun, thinking it was the cloud had crossed over the sun. It got it, and it wasn't. It was the wall of water, about 70 foot high, just coming towards us like this. We were going along like this, and the wall of water was coming like this. Then suddenly we just all went white as a sheet. I mean, we froze, literally froze. It was about 70 foot high and coming towards us like that, and the boat was like this, and we were just going to rolled over, and we were too far from the coast, and I just thought we'd had it. And then I remembered, I know it sounds kind of corny saying this, but I remember a film before I left London, a couple of weeks before I left London, called High Wind in Jamaica, and it was about pirates in the Caribbean, and there was a big galleon ship, and there was a tidal wave in that, this big wall of water. Captain said to the guy, turn the boat into the wave like that, so it could ride the wave. And I remember that, and I just screamed to the guy. I said, he had one of those funny old-fashioned wheels. I said, turn the boat into the wave, turn it into the wave quickly, and we're going to... And he started turning the wheel round, and as the wall got closer and closer, it just got there in time, and we went up, straight up like that, and everybody fell to the bottom of the boats. Cameras, tripods, makeup cases, bodies, legs, arms, everything. Just everybody fell on top of each other. And it took forever to get to the top of what seemed like forever. And then we got to the top and went over the top and then slid down like a ski slope down the other side. It feels like we were going at 100 miles an hour. It was so fast. And then we got to the bottom of that, and the boat was rocking around, and everybody's hanging onto each other, trying to stay in the boat. And we straightened up, and everything was fine. We looked at each other, and everybody said, "Did I dream that? Was that a dream? Tell me that was a dream." And everybody said, "No, it really happened." And we thought, "God, thank God we're okay." We looked up, and there was another one. And it was coming closer and closer, and it was about 30 or 40 foot high. And we went up over the top of that, and then another one about 10 feet high. They come in threes, evidently. And, but yeah, it was a really scary moment. And, but Bailey insisted we still carry on after that and go to this lagoon and do the pictures. We were all in shock, and he did, no, we're fine. We're all okay. Nobody's hurt, And then it was funny, about 3 or 4 months later, back in London, I was at a dinner party, around a dinner table, and this woman across the table said, "Mr. Swannell." I didn't know her, she's an old lady. "I heard about Hawaii." And I said, "Oh yeah." She said, "Yeah, I heard about that tidal wave, that sort of 70-foot tidal wave. Now everybody puts their knives and forks down at this dinner." And they said, "You were in a tidal wave? You were in a, my God, what happened?" And I said, "Well, just came out of the blue, and we rode the tide, went over the top." And they said, "My God, weren't you scared?" I said, "Well, it's too far. It happened too fast. You don't get time to get scared." Yeah, we were scared, but it happened so quickly. It was all over so quickly. She said, "Yeah, it was life and death. Thank God Bailey was with you." And I said, "Oh, how's that?" She said, "Well, if he hadn't told the guy to turn the boat into the wave, you'd all be dead today, wouldn't you?" And I laughed and said, "Yeah, sure." And I didn't say anything,
Have you ever reminded him?
Yeah, I mentioned it to him, and he, "No, fuck off, I didn't say that. It's a pile of shit,
When you got your feet under the table, I mean, you'd arguably saved the great man's life. Here you were, working with him and established with him, but he doesn't take prisoners, does he? I mean, he's a very straight-talking man. What was it actually like working with and for Bailey?
He was the best. He was the best employer I ever had. It wasn't like working for a company and going in every day. It wasn't like going to work. It was the 5 years or 4 years I was with him, probably some of the best years of my life. We had such a great time, really, really good time. The thing about working with him was that you never know who was going to turn up. You never know who's going to turn up and be photographed. I mean, John Lennon turned up one day with Yoko, and he was photographing them, and then he said, "I'm just going to do a few pictures of Yoko on our own." And John and Lennon and I were sitting at the back of the studio on the couch. I'd never met him before. It was the first time. Beatles, John Lennon, the Beatles. And I was 19 years old, and I was in awe, of course, and trying to be as cool as I could, And he rolled up this joint, and he lit it up and took a puff, and he said to me, "Do you smoke, John?" And I said, yeah, this joint. And I'd never even smoked an ordinary cigarette, let alone a joint. So he passed it to me, and I was being really cool, and took this intake of smoke of this joint, and I coughed my heart out, and he went, patted me on the back. He said, "Give me that joint, don't waste it." He said, "You don't smoke, do you?" And I said, "I do." I said, "Just went down the wrong way." He said, "Yeah, get out of here." He said, "Yeah, I'm sure he did." So, and that was funny. And then when I was in the pub that night with my mates, and they were saying, never knew people, "What do you do today? What do you?" I said, "Actually, I shared a joint with John Lennon," and they all just turned my back on me and said, "Sure, you did, Pinocchio."
It was a very exciting time to be in photography, and particularly the genre that you were in with Bailey. And I know that there were other influences on you, like Richard Avedon, for example.
Yeah, I loved his picture. They were so simple. Bailey did as well. So Bailey kind of introduced me to him, and Irving Penn and all those great photographers. And yeah, I think Avedon for me was the top one. He even had the edge on Penn, and Penn was a master, but Avedon was a genius. He used to make pictures out of nothing on a grey background or a white background. Nowadays, everybody's photographing, with backgrounds and wonderful backdrops, and Tim Walker's, photographed the most wonderful dresses in the world on the most beautiful girls in the world, and he throws everything into the picture except the kitchen sink, and of course it's going to look out of this world, But Avedon was just simple, just a very simple craftsman, brilliant photographer, and he could take a person, put them on a simple background, and take an incredibly memorable picture. And that is so hard to do, I can tell you. It's really hard to do. Bailey's quite good at it with white backgrounds. He's very good with portraits, and he gets something out of people that other people can't.
What's the key, do you think, to shooting on a white background and making good pictures? I mean, there's whole books written about this subject, and you might think that a white background is just a white background with a couple of lights each side on it, but there's more to it, isn't there?
You put 4 lights on the background, 2 up and 2 below, depending on how far you're coming down, and then if you put black boards either side of the person, and even black board across the top, you get that lovely black line around the person against the white background. It really throws them out. It's really quite crisp, especially if they're wearing white or something light. If they're wearing black, you could put white boards either side, and then the background, I always used to just overexpose by half a stop on the background, and just cut out as much light around her from the background. So when you're looking through the camera, you don't see any white background except that little bit between those black boards and where the person's sitting or standing, and all the other, you just block it all out with boards and things. So you don't get the feedback, and it's the feedback that makes the picture looks like it's that soft or out of focus. And that way, you're just, the backlight that's coming back on you is so minimal, the front light takes over and it stays nice and crisp. Was it
Avedon's simplicity in his approach that inspired the way that you work?
I like simple picture. I like, it's harder to do those pictures, but it's more rewarding when you get it right. I was inspired by Avedon, and Bailey, of course. He was my inspiration as well, and Penn and Horst, the American photographer. I love that kind of spotlight stuff he used to use, but I do it with flash with spotlights on. He used to do it with big old movie lights, those big clumsy old things, like Cecil Beaton. They used to do it, but they both, came up with the goods. There was something about Cecil Beaton. He wasn't the greatest photographer in the world, but there was something about his pictures that were incredibly charming, or vulnerable and accessible and memorable. I mean, I remember every Cecil Beaton picture. I just remember them. He started off photographing his 2 sisters, and obviously went on to photograph the royal family.
Yeah, well, in many respects, your career has echoed that path, hasn't it?
Yeah, I've done quite a lot with them. I'm always surprised when I get a call from them. It's really weird. I did the Queen Mother's 100th birthday, and I was pleased about that because I wanted to meet her. I'd never met her before, and I'd done the Queen a few times before that. And then we did the Jubilee picture. They asked 7 photographers to do the Jubilee picture, Golden Jubilee. And then 3 years ago, they asked me to do the Diamond Jubilee picture when she was on the throne for 60 years. And I thought there'd be other photographers. They said, no, you're the only one this time. So I was really pleased about that.
Do you feel like you have a special relationship with the palace?
I don't know, not really. I mean, you can't get carried away too much. I go in, I do the job, have a cup of tea, coffee, have a chat and stuff, and then I leave. It's a bit like the plumber. Go in, I fix the job, fix the pipes, or the electrician, get the wires right and everything. Everybody happy? Great. I'll see you next time. I mean, I treat it like that. I don't go in thinking, I'm one of the family. You're never one of the family. You're never going to get close to them. And also, the Queen's been photographed more than any other person in the entire world. Nobody's been photographed more than the Queen. So I go in, it's just another picture for her, and she's incredibly professional, enthusiastic. She doesn't look bored, or she doesn't always thank you afterwards for giving up your day or afternoon. She's incredibly polite. I like her a lot. I mean, she's lovely.
Does the Queen know your work? Does she talk about your work with you?
No, we don't do that really. It's not small talk. It's not even small talk really. It's just I just do the job and make sure she's happy with everything. And they never ask to look at the screen or anything like that. They've never ever done that. I remember Princess Anne. I photographed her. I did her 40th, 50th, and 60th birthday. Funny enough, and. The first time I photographed her, I said I did a picture and it was looking really good on the screen. And in fact, it wasn't the screen in those days because it was her 40th birthday. It was before digital. It was the Polaroid. I did a Polaroid, which everybody used to do in the old days. And I'd said, "Mom, do you want to have a look at the Polaroid, see how you look?" She said, "Are you happy with it?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Okay, carry on." They never, because and you think, oh, I thought she might be interested, but you have to remember, she looks at the picture. And if she says, "Oh, you made me look great, or she says, oh, that's interesting, or that's, then everybody in the studio has heard what she said, and then one person might tell somebody else she thought she looked really good in the picture, and then somebody else might tell somebody else, and the papers get hold of it. Oh, she's really conceited, she really thinks she looks good in pictures. So you've got to be careful. I realised when she said that's why they never look at the pictures, never comment. It's only when you send the pictures in, they, send a message or, get their people to phone and say thank you. The pictures, very pleased with them. Part 2 of the John Swannell interview will be next week. There will be a full-length version on the on my Breathe Pictures podcast because there is so much material. But part 2 next week. Right.
Interestingly, how do you listen to your podcasts? Not your personal ones, but when you're listening to podcasts, what do you use?
Oh, what app do I use? Overcast. I love it. I don't think Overcast is on your Huawei. I think it's an Apple-only thing, I think. But Overcast I like because, just the way it stores stuff, remembers stuff, remembers where you are in the podcast. I like the way it does its favourites and all kinds of... What do you use?
Spotify.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Spotify.
So do you listen to all your podcasts with Spotify?
Well, the only podcast I ever listen to is the Breathe Pictures podcast, if I'm totally honest. I'm not a podcasty type person, believe it or not.
But you love your audiobooks, don't you?
I love audiobooks, yeah. And Gemma loves podcasts.
Right.
She loves them.
What does she listen to?
She listens to a lot of American kind of serial kind of stuff, crime stuff, real life things she listens to.
Jeff Goldblum's
Jeff Goldblum's autobiography repeatedly over and over. All of that stuff. But Spotify, I like Spotify though.
Self-indulgent moment in a moment. First of all, we meant to mention this right at the start of the show, and we should have done it. The X-Weddings Conference.
X-Weddings Conference.
Yes.
Number 2.
Number 2. Yeah.
Yes, November, it's coming. Those of you who are listening that came last year will remember it was in June, and it's the same venue, the Hilton in Bath in England.
Amazing venue, by the way.
Yeah, and actually one of the reasons why it's in November this year, I wanted to do it in September, but it's having a massive refurb, so they're effectively knocking it all down.
What, for a bigger bar?
No, it's going to be a bigger bar. Yeah, they knew we were coming.
The bar was pretty big anyway. It's a nice bar. I like that bar.
So
we spent a lot of time in that bar in the evenings.
That bar won't be there.
Won't it?
No, it's all
going to be there.
They're knocking all of that downstairs out, and she showed me the plans. It's going to be pretty cool.
Will my room still have the jacuzzi and the?
Yeah, I think I've requested that one for you. Yeah. So the newly refurbished Hilton Hotel in Bath, 2-day event. Although most of the stuff happens on the one day, so it's the 13th and 14th of November, and we have a very, very busy keynote. I call it a keynote day, where all of the speakers do an hour, and there is 7 of us. So that's 6 of us. Sorry, you're not doing one on the first day. So we have myself. I'm going to do the opening session, which will be kind of introductions to people. But instead of showing people my pictures and talking to them about that, because I feel like people have seen enough of my work over the years, I'm going to do an SEO boot camp. Because there is a lot of
new stuff.
A lot of new stuff, yeah, and a lot of misinformation out there as well. So SEO bootcamp from me. Then we're going to have.
So if you're investing your money to come on this for one thing alone, I mean, we start straight away with the business that you need to know about about being online.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of good stuff to go into that little talk. And I used to do SEO workshops a lot because
your SEO workshop costs more than this conference.
Absolutely, yeah. For those who don't know, before I became a photographer, that was my trade. It was online marketing, websites development, that kind of stuff. And whilst it's very different now, it's still something that I've kind of kept up with. So I'm doing that business kind of bootcamp bit in the morning. Then we have our Wildcard, Wildcard, by the way, it's a weddings conference, and although it's called X Weddings and it's kind of supported by Fujifilm, all the speakers are Fujifilm photographers and filmmakers, but you certainly do not need to be a Fujifilm user to come. We had plenty of people came last year who are shooting with Sony and Canon, etc., etc. And we have a Wildcard each year who is somebody who's not even going to talk about weddings, and this year it is Soraya
Cordoville.
Well,
that's out. Yeah,
Soraya Cordoville. And she's an amazing photographer. She's going to be talking about her NGO work and her travel photography. She's currently the chairperson of the BIPP. I think she's the third ever woman to do that.
Her travel work, in particular, the stuff that I was seeing on Instagram about her work across Morocco was incredible.
Yeah. She's
a lot
amazing.
of people go to that continent and shoot what I would call poverty tourism because it's so easy. So many come to India, for example, and just we'll take you around and all the spots where the people hang out and 30 people taking the picture of the same stuff. Soraya's work in Morocco, I thought, captured the very essence of what that country is all about.
Yeah, and also she's
empathy.
She's a commissioned photographer as well. So she goes on NGOs. She does, she's paid for her work. It's not, she doesn't go on workshops and get those pictures, so to speak. So she's great. She's also a feature film ex-photographer. Then we have Chris Parkinson from Newcastle, who is another amazing photographer. His work is a wedding photographer. His work is very different to mine and your style, but very, I think it's very modern and fresh. Similar to Scott Johnson, who we also have come in. He's another ex-photographer, and his work is amazing. He's just won this year at WPPI, I think, the overall best wedding picture of the year, Grandmaster type thingy-majiggy fellowships coming out of his little Essex bum. And we also have...
Do you want me to edit that bit out?
No. Matt Thompson as well, who is those who came last year will remember that we had York Place Studios there, Dom and Lee, and so Dominique, Matt is her husband, and he is the filmmaker at York Place Studios. So his films are great. His little wedding films are amazing. So he's going to come and talk to us about filmmaking specifically for weddings. Yeah. Using XT3s and feature film equipment and all the audio and all of that stuff. Then we have
Wojciech
Hurich. Oh my God, I practiced this so much. I would be terrible as a news presenter. Wojciech Hurich, who I've met several times, or a couple of times, I should say.
He's an incredible photographer.
Czech Republic, another feature film ex-photographer, documentary wedding photographer, but also documentary photographer, filmmaker. Absolutely incredible. I remember seeing his work for the first time at the Czech Photo Festival in Prague, and I walked in, and my pictures being exhibited as well, and his pictures were, rightly so, were the first things you saw. And I looked at these pictures, and I said to Gemma, who was with me at the time, I was like, oh, Christ, look at this.
But then people say that about your work.
Oh, whatever. But I was
they do.
And I'd never, I knew of his name, but I'd never really studied his work or never met him. Yeah. And these pictures were just, really, really beautiful. Both his wedding work and his more serious. His weddings are serious, aren't they? Okay. More editorial documentary stuff. So he's come in. He's going to be doing a talk on the keynote. Also,
you must see his X100 film, which you introduced me to this morning. Yeah. Can we put a link out in the show notes this week?
I'll link it
because that film is just beautiful. Anyway, go on. Sorry.
Yeah. He's amazing.
Apologies.
Really cool. And then so on day 2, it's the 1 day workshops. Yeah. So this is for people who want to spend a whole day with either Vojta. And Vojta's going to be doing a whole kind of day, weddings and editing, and we're going to go out on the streets of Bath with him and shoot and everything. That's going to be really exciting. And then the other one is you.
I know.
So you're doing a 1 day workshop on
sound and films.
So
if you haven't turned on the video button on your camera, there's an opportunity to do so, but more so also sound, because I've you know me, I bash on about it, but sound is that in fact the very last YouTube film I've just made was all about introducing a voice and a sound to your pictures, which sounds odd, but making films that feature still photography and sound, how to produce the sound, what to do with it, what to record it with, how to edit it, how to get the nice warmth, rich tones that you want as well, how to give your pictures a voice, which also gives an opportunity in terms of sales to do something that's we live in a very, very it's
multimedia world.
And it's more and more congested as well. And if you think in a 2-dimensional sense only, then maybe you're missing a trick.
Yeah, and also, now, especially with the XT3, I think that more
easy,
people are experimenting with filmmaking, and whether that's at weddings or not doesn't really matter. But it's the quality that you can get from the XT3. I held for an hour the GFX 100 a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, incredible!
I had it like 2 days before. 2 days before it was officially announced. I was one of the Fujifilm reps showed me it for an hour, and I filmed a little clip of I have it on my YouTube video channel as well. I filmed a little clip of the kids playing a game, and the audio. I was blown away by the onboard audio to that camera.
Well, the reference audio.
Yeah,
wow.
I didn't edit that audio that was on my YouTube video. No, that just came straight into the camera.
I didn't realise that was just reference audio.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
I mean, of course, the camera's 10 grand, but
10 grand's worth of reference audio.
It was amazing. But the fact is, all cameras these days are giving us that more capability, I suppose. So, and you're the best person, I feel, to educate people on that. So,
well, we'll certainly be doing.
Early bird prices finish on the 15th of June.
So you do not have long if you're listening to this podcast right now.
Yeah, if you're listening to it afterwards, you've missed it.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah.
But on the XT3 with video, by the way, I've been working on this documentary in Africa with it. And there are a couple of big players looking at it, which I'm extraordinarily excited about. But one of the interesting conversations we recently had was, what kit did you use? Oh, Fujifilm X-T3. Really? So I thought that was an interesting response from, possibly a nice large distributor. Exciting camera times, I think.
Yeah.
Right, let's go for the self-indulgent moment. Do you want to shoot with the first one or me?
You go for it. Why not? I'm feeling happy.
A new comment. Here we go. Robin Chun. My perfect cousin, what I like to do, he doesn't. The undertones. That's not really
Done that one.
Sorry. That was a waste of one. Sorry, go on.
We gave him a strap as well.
We did.
Okay, so this is from...
I just wasted my one.
Axatron.
Right.
Axatron. I like their podcast. Two funny guys with knowledge and humour and interesting themes. I highly recommend this podcast.
Okay.
Thank you, Axatron.
Emily, talking about the episode with Sean Tucker. Oh man, the best episode so far. Putting myself out there, being vulnerable. That's what it's about for me. Sean Tucker. How you two keep finding and interviewing the most beautiful human beings is just incredible. Thank you. Thank you, Emily.
Ashley Morgan. The Fujicast is a great podcast for anyone interested in photography. Neil and Kevin are working professionals with a humorous rapport. Great to listen to and very informative. Regardless of the title of the show, it's really a place for anyone interested in photography, regardless of camera brand. This is not a fanboy podcast whatsoever. Interesting and informative conversations and interviews with great and relevant photographers. Give it a listen. You won't regret it.
Oh, that was good timing. Look at that.
Well done. That's a good one, Ashley. I like that.
Just file my old one down there. There we go. Done. Right. Questions. Was it my turn or yours?
Yeah, you go. I've got to find mine again.
Carl Cherry. Hello from the States, Memphis, Tennessee. I loved Memphis. I visited it only once, and what a place. I went to Graceland's. Graceland, or was it Graceland?
Did you go walking in Memphis?
No, I didn't. But I did go to Graceland, and I was shocked by how a lot of people say this about going to Elvis's home, that it's much smaller than you imagine. And the rooms have the weirdest carpets. I think there was a bright green one. A baize green carpet or something.
He was a bit peculiar towards the end, though, wasn't he?
Well, I guess, when you're that famous, anything goes. But it was an amazing place. I loved it. And the bars and the music and everything about that place is just incredible.
I've been to a lot of places in America, but I've never been to the Deep South. And
this has to be one on your list.
As a country fan, that's the place I want to go to the most.
Yeah, you should be, yeah. Anyway, this is from Carl Cherry, from Tennessee, Memphis, Tennessee. I suffer occasionally with carpal tunnel syndrome and tendonitis in my right hand. I didn't know we were a medical phone in now. Fingers and wrist. A full day of shooting can end up being quite painful. I feel your pain, Carl. The lighter Fuji kit helps, for sure, but can still cause problems. Do either of you suffer from RSI after a long day of photography? If you do, is there anything to minimise the problem? Thank you for a great show from Carl. Right, Carl, first of all, I'm going to say that I found the opposite, that actually when I swapped to lighter gear, my grip changed around the camera, in particular with the X Pro 2, And I found the problem came to me rather than went away. I used Canon 5Ds for many years, 5D 1, 2, 3 and 4. And the actual grip on the camera I love. I think the ergonomics of using a Canon 5D4 is fantastic. I never had the grip on the bottom, so it wasn't particularly heavy. I used the cheaper primes, actually. And one of my favourites was an 85mm 1.8, which I think is one of Canon's finest lenses. And but so swapping to the Fuji system, I found I had to sort of Elton John hands, as my wife calls them. I found myself gripping to a much smaller box, and just for me it increased the problem, didn't take it away, and it's taken a while for me to get used to a lighter camera rather than a heavier camera.
I have no real comment on that because
You've never been
I've never really noticed it. I never really had a problem with my big Canon 1D Mark, whatever it was. I've never had a problem with. I don't know. Maybe I've just got the perfect shaped hands for
camera
stuff.
hands.
I've got camera hands.
Yeah.
You got Elton John hands. I've got camera hands.
Edward camera hands. So no, I'm sorry, Carl, but what I will ask is at this stage, because the mailbag each week, to call it an old-fashioned name, is I'm so thankful for all your emails, and we really are, because you're the lifeblood of the show, as Kevin always takes me account of me for saying. So I'll get that one in there early. But it's a really good question, and I'm sure some of our listeners have had that issue. And if you have, could you write in, please, and share what you've done, which I think, by extension, will help Carl Cherry from Memphis.
And the email address is click@fujicast.co.uk for all correspondence with us.
That is right. Yours.
Okay. I have one from Randy Tarr, who is also from America, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Hi guys, enjoying the podcast. Keep it up. Can you discuss some tips for developing our photographic eye? Do you think this is something innate or something that can be developed and finely groomed with practice? I really like that question, but you answer first.
I don't think you develop a photographic eye.
Style, aesthetic, pleasing look, all that kind of stuff, I guess.
Are we talking about the post-processing?
No,
or are we talking
I'm not sure about that.
The first thing that you know, what you're seeing with the box?
I would say, if I was to flip that question around a little bit, I would say, what do you look at that you think helps you become a better photographer?
It's what I hear rather than what I see.
Of course it is.
I'm a very, if we were talking in terms of auditory kinesthetic and all that kind of stuff and visual, for me it would be what I hear. I listen for a photograph before I ever make a photograph.
Okay, well that's really interesting, and I suppose actually, Randy, that is a very valid answer as well. I mean, I kind of read this question as, do you think you're born with a style that you like to shoot, or not necessarily shoot, but appreciate? Okay, and I think the answer is no. I think you, much like your, people don't really like jazz when they're 20 and they like jazz when they're 45. I think it kind of grows on you in certain ways.
Single malt,
yeah, absolutely. And I think the more that I look at other people's work, not necessarily weddings, but just generally, the more I have an appreciation of things like light and composition and all that kind of stuff. And I definitely, when I first became a photographer, I had no idea about any of that stuff. I just pointed my camera at stuff and hoped that was it, and over time I kind of, maybe I still do that to a certain extent, but I kind of got a style and an appreciation of something that I liked, and that's what I try and manifest in my pictures. And you do it via the medium of sound, I guess, as the conduit to it, which is really interesting.
Well, I guess I'm just led by. That goes straight back to if you're a photojournalist. Your senses are drawn, aren't they, by probably what you hear before what you see, wouldn't you say?
Have you ever done that thing? We mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, I think, where at a wedding specifically, you just record the audio on your phone and then take yourself away.
This was your concept.
Yeah, well, actually, it was Patrick Larocque. He does it on the streets, but I kind of adapted it and took it into weddings.
Right.
And I've done it on the streets since. I did it on a workshop with some people the other day, and I got everybody to. I took them to the most boring street corner we could find, and I got them all to spend 5 minutes looking for a picture. And we all struggled, myself included. And then we got all our phones out. We all went on opposite sides of the corners. We recorded audio on our phones for 60 seconds. And we went into a coffee shop and we all listened to our audio separately, independently.
Right.
We went back out, and my task to them was to tell a story of that street corner now. And they all managed to take pictures, and it was, some of them concentrated on people crossing the road because there was a pelican crossing. There was the clatter from a coffee shop around the corner, the one we'd just been to. So they were telling the story, people going in and out to the coffee shop and everything, and so the audio became the conduit to telling the story. It wasn't part of it, it wasn't the fact we weren't going to overlay the audio on the pictures or anything, but we waited, we listened to the sound of the environment, and that allowed us to then make pictures, which is exactly what you just said.
Well,
I'm
going to be told off as well now by somebody who wrote us an email a couple of weeks ago, and I think I kept hold of it in my must look into that file about binaural. Have you ever heard of binaural sound? Okay, hang on. We're going to get deep now.
Warning.
Okay, binaural sound is the way that we truly hear what goes on in the world. Okay, unless you have some sort of hearing deficiency or problem, difficulty, most of us are led by the sound that comes around us in a 3D aspect. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
So we hear mainly what goes on with what we see in front of us, that 180 thing going on, but also there's the senses of what's coming, the 40% of what's happening behind us, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And this new way of recording is that you put these kind of earbuds in your ears, and they act with the shape of your ear. Microphones. It's a kind of stereoscopic, is that the right word? Of a way of recording sound. You can only really hear it when you put your headphones on. So if I made a binaural film and just played it back in stereo speakers, it would just sound like.
So you record it with separate.
You've got two earbuds in, one left, one right, and they are recording a 3-dimensional sound as opposed to just stereo.
So the earbuds in your ears are recording the sound.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
They're acting like your ears.
Wow.
These are really expensive microphones. I looked into it just before I went on holiday a couple of weeks ago.
Microphones that you put in your ears as well.
Yeah. Wow. And I was photographing in Tenerife, and I went to Los Cristianos one day to try and get a load of street pictures. And what I was hearing, I was thinking, this would be so powerful if it was if there was a track with my pictures, the binaural sound of what's going on this beach. It would be really powerful.
This is right up your street, isn't it?
Yeah, this is. Sorry, should we move on? Because this is actually a photography podcast.
No, but I think that this, like, I can just see you. I can see the excitement in your eyes already.
No. Well, I'm going to talk about this actually at the X-Weddings conference. Binaural sound and how you can use sound to really make your films.
I really want you to do the conference with those microphones sticking out your ears.
The thing of listening to music or something. Right, next question. This is very exciting. Good day, Neil and Kevin. Guess where this is from?
Aberystwyth.
Adrian here from Shell Harbour, Australia. A couple of hours south of Sydney. I went a couple of hours north of Sydney, actually, to Port Stephens in Australia. And I tell you, have you ever, and we're going back to sound again. I will come off this subject, but the sound of Australia is something that I was trying to explain this to my mother-in-law the other day, who said she said, well, thanks very much. We're not going to Australia now because of you. Oh. And I said, why is that? Well, we were going to go and watch the tennis, but you said you could go, if that's all you're going to do, go to Melbourne to watch tennis. You could watch on television. Well, I did mean that, but there's other things to see in Australia apart from tennis anyway. But no, the sound of Australia, the wildlife, the birds, it's just
I've never been to Australia. I'd like to go.
Gooey-eyed now.
Yeah.
My question is, have you ever shot a whole wedding with just one lens? Now, this doesn't have to be a wedding. It can be anything. Focal length-wise. If so, what did you use and what tips would you pass on to do it effectively? I'll be shooting my second wedding this year for a family friend. I don't have 2 cameras set up, and I'm really tempted by the idea of 1 camera, 1 lens for the whole wedding. I don't want to make the wedding a creative experiment, but I'm interested in whether it'll help me be more focused on what's happening rather than thinking about which lens to use, the old golf bag approach. So I'll have the 9 iron for this one, if there is such a thing. At the moment, I'm thinking of just using the Fuji X Pro 2 and a 35mm 1.4. Which would you go for, Kev?
Well, I would. I'd love to do it. I have done it, in fact. I've done it twice. Although it's not exactly like that. I've shot 2 weddings just with X100s. And on both occasions, and they were with the X100S at the time. But I had one without the wide-angle adapter and one with the wide-angle adapter. So I had 2 X100Ss.
Right.
What do you call 2 X100Ss? 2 X100S's?
Oh, I thought it was going to be a joke then.
2 X100S's.
It's like how many men does it take to change a light bulb joke? I thought was coming up.
2 X100S's.
X100X's.
Yeah. One with the wide angle conversion lens. But if I was doing that and it was for a family friend, I'd be all over that in a rash, and I would use the X100F.
Would you?
With a 23mm lens,
which is effective 35mm.
Effective 35mm. Yeah, absolutely. I would love it. Absolutely love it. Why you don't need anything else? I personally don't believe you need anything else.
So Adrian here is
especially if it's for a family friend.
Adrian's using the 35mm, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
So that's equivalent 50-ish, isn't it? 51 or whatever.
Yeah. You're not going to get too much wide stuff in with that. That's the thing.
No, that might scuppy you on a few things.
Yeah, potentially. But I mean, fine. You'll get some really nice candids and portrait-y type shots and everything with it. But certainly, if you're tasked with doing group shots or anything like that, you're going to have to be standing back a long way, depending on how big the group shots are, of course. But yeah, I would do it. I have done it. X100F. That would be my. Yeah,
the X Pro 2 is a wonderful camera to use for this experiment, if we're not supposed to call it that, but I would take the 23mm 1.4.
Yeah,
effective 35, which is what you're. Yeah, and the 2 lenses on my 2 bodies that I have, 35 and the 56 equivalent 85, of course. So. In old money language, 35 and 85 are my preferred focal lengths, and I think probably more than 50% of the day now comes from a 35mm focal length, i.e. the 23mm.
Yeah, same as me. I mean, it's interesting. Those of you that use Lightroom to, just look in your metadata, you can just press the / key on your keyboard and you can filter by everything, and it will show you exactly how many pictures you've taken in your entire catalogue on 23 or whatever it is.
That's good. That's a good thing to do.
But that's a great question. I would love him to send in
that is going to be this. Send some pictures.
Send us a link to it.
Number 1,
when you're happy.
Number 2, Adrian, a strap is coming your way. From Simpler Straps, because that is such a good one.
Yeah,
I like that question. It's got us thinking.
That strap is going on a long plane journey.
Yeah, I'm so jealous. I'd like to be that strap. This is sounding a bit odd now. Now, this is turning into the longest, if not the longest episode ever. Do you want to do one more question, or should we close it here and come back next week?
No, let's close it and make them come back next week.
Yeah? Yeah. Because we've got more to talk about.
Yeah.
We've got some cracking questions next week.
Yeah.
More about the X-Weddings.
Yes, and we will be offering a free place at the X-Weddings conference.
Next week?
Yes.
You're mad, you are.
And we are going to do it by... I'm totally thinking off the top of my head now. You know what we'll do? Yeah. If you mention... When you send your questions in, click at fujicast.co.uk. You have to mention it in the question that you want to enter the X-Weddings competition. And we will think of a creative way of selecting somebody. Right. You have to get yourself to Bath in November by your own means and accords. Yeah. But you'll get a free ticket.
People did come from America last year, didn't they?
We had an Australian.
Did we?
Yeah. We did. We had 3 from America, one from Australia.
Don't tell me I had a long conversation with him at that Indian meal, I don't remember.
We even had one from Merthyr Tydfil.
Yeah, that is too long. We'll talk more about X-Weddings next week. Second part of John Swannell next week, of course, as well. And thank you to our friends at Simpler Straps, spelt SIMPLR.US. If you'd like to know more about their straps, one is going to Australia and the other one going to... Where was your one? Was that a Welsh one this week?
I don't know. It was Greg, wasn't it?
Is it Greg?
I just have his email address. I'm not sure he actually said where he was coming from.
Gemma's coming in, by by the way. We got a cracking idea, which we won't tell you about now, but there's a really good idea, which means that Gemma is coming in.
That's as long as she hasn't met Jeff Goldblum before then.
That's true. So the payoffs will change, but for this week, it's still going to be Rosa for you.
My dad's Instagram is Kevin Mullins Photography. See his films on YouTube at Documentary Eye. His website is kevinmullinsphotography.co.uk. Or for street workshops, training, and everything Fujifilm, go to f16.click.
Our Jack, by the way, was sort of verbally bullied at school over the last couple of days because we went on holiday to Tenerife, and he wears his tan well, my older son. And somebody's just been calling him Donald Trump for the last couple of days, which for some reason Jack's taken extremely personally, and he's more unhappy about that than anything else.
Bless him.
So he can do the payoff this week.
My dad's Instagram is Neil James. See his films on YouTube at Neil James Photo. His website is neiljames.com for pictures and one-to-one mentoring. And you can hear his other photography podcast, which is called Breathe Pictures, wherever you get your podcasts.
And we will see you next week with that exciting competition. That is good. Did you just make that up, or is that?
Yeah, I'm clever like that. Yeah.
Right. I thought it was something you prepared earlier.